Coming up on Retiring Well.
When you retire, if you're like most people, suddenly you need income from that portfolio. And suddenly the number one job of your retirement savings is to deliver a regular paycheck to you for the rest of your life.
Now, there has to be a fundamental shift in what their portfolio looks like, especially if it wants to match their risk tolerance and income needs.
A lot of times the most successful people I see where they're diversifying all of those different strategies to blend them together to create a cohesive retirement plan.
Retiring Well, helping you make smart decisions with your money so you can live a better life. Today is the day you can take back control of your money. Retiring Well, where we believe your best is yet to come.
Welcome to Retiring Well. I'm your host, Michael Reese. I am absolutely thrilled about today's show. This is going to be one of my favorite shows. We're going to talk about how you build your, what we call, ideal portfolio. And this is great because this applies to you at any stage of your life. I just love this concept. It's something we use every day in the office to help folks, folks just like you. You come visit with us in the office and we sit down with you. We help you build that ideal portfolio. So let's go ahead and dive in and talk a little bit about what I'm referencing when I say ideal portfolio. You see, this whole concept came to me when I was thinking about my dad. I talked about him on the show before, but when he retired, he came to me. He said, Mike, now I'm retired. Here's my 401k. I want you to do three things for me. Protect my principal, give me some income, and if possible, grow it a little bit. He wanted me to do those three things. And that was fantastic. And a lot of folks, maybe that's exactly what you want. But the other thing that happened is my dad was being very simple about that. Protect my principal, take income, and grow. Made me kind of think a little bit. I had a bit of an epiphany. And what I thought about is, gosh, whenever you invest your money, aren't you also trying to capture those three things in some way, shape, or form? Isn't there some mixture of growth, income, and safety that applies to you? I mean, it's going to change wherever you are in life. I think about my daughter. My oldest daughter's 24 years old. We have a retirement plan at work. When she invests her money, what does she want more than anything else? What's a primary job? Growth. Well, what if you're not 24 like she is? What if you're 64? Let's say you're 64 years old, you've worked your whole life, you've built up this portfolio, and you're thinking, gosh, I want to retire. Maybe you want to retire in a year or two. And you think, you still want growth, but you start thinking, gosh, if the market crashes in the next year or two, you might not be able to retire when you want to retire. So you might start thinking, man, yeah, I still want growth, but now I want safety. Well, what about when you retire? When you retire, if you're like most people, suddenly you need income from that portfolio. And suddenly the number one job of your retirement savings is to deliver a regular paycheck to you for the rest of your life. So wherever you are in life, these different pieces, some are more important than the others, but how do you mix them together? That's what we call your ideal portfolio. So I don't want you going anywhere. We are going to dive into this. It's going to be a great show, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm sitting here with Larry Flynn. Thanks for being here, Larry.
Thank you, Mike.
He's one of the advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory. And folks, as you may know by now, we certainly invite you to come visit with us. It's absolutely free to get a second opinion on your retirement planning. And I think it's important to get a second opinion from someone who's a specialist when it comes to retirement planning. And Larry, I'm sure they're wondering, if they pick up the phone and they call and come visit with you, what can they expect? What's that experience like?
Well, Mike, they can expect not to get hard sold. okay? We're going to greet them warmly. We're going to sit down and talk to them a little bit about maybe their story, where they're from, where they grew up, how they met their spouse, what they're dreaming of doing once they get soon to be retired or retired.
Kind of what are their goals, right?
Yeah, what are your goals? We're going to talk to them a little bit about who we are, what we do, show them how we do things, especially dealing in the market realities we find ourselves in today.
Got it. So essentially, they're coming in, you're learning a little bit about what's important to them, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. I'm sure you're taking a look at what they're doing so far. You maybe share a little bit about you, and it's just in a very relaxed atmosphere.
That's right.
And there's no cost to do this. Is that correct?
No cost. No cost.
All right. So, folks, there you go. I mean, it sounds very simple, very easy, very laid back. There's no reason for you not to just pick up the phone, call the number on the screen, come visit us, get that second opinion. You'd be glad that you did. Welcome back. As you can see, I have Larry Flynn with me, one of the lead advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory, offices throughout Northern Michigan. And Larry, we are talking this week about what we call the ideal portfolio, where we help people identify how much growth they need, how much income, and how much safety or what kind of risk, control they want to have. Now, I've heard you tell me over and over again that when you talk about this, that you see people are really in pretty good shape in one of those areas, and, well, they often fall short in two of them. So let's start with the good.
Okay.
What's the one area that you see folks are normally in pretty good shape?
Normally good shape on the growth side.
On the growth side?
Yeah.
So why? Why is that?
Well, I mean, because we've been in a bull run for quite some time, right? That seems to be where all the growth is. Traditionally, as people would get closer to retirement, they might be moving more into fixed income accounts, but fixed income accounts are not paying a whole lot right now. So they tend to be a little bit growth heavy.
Got it. And haven't you told me in the past that the industry itself, the entire financial industry, and a lot of investment advisors are really more growth than accumulation focused anyway?
For the most part, yes.
Okay, so that's where they're paying their time and attention on growth.
That's right. That's what people think they need most, right?
Okay, so it matches up.
Matches up.
Yet, when we get to retirement, things shift.
That's right.
And suddenly, it's often about income and preservation. So now I've heard you now say that this is also where people often find themselves falling short in this ideal portfolio model. So why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Well, Mike, I like the way you preface that, because there is a shift. I can't tell you how many times when we've talked to somebody and said, I've been predominantly growth oriented, but they were in their working years, right? Now I'm getting closer to retirement, and for one reason or another, I'm feeling like that may not be proper for me. I'm thinking I want to be a little bit more safety oriented.
Sure. In other words, growth alone is not the best fit anymore.
I want some growth, but help me protect against any big down markets, right? I got to have some safety. So
do you have any examples maybe that come to mind where somebody came in and maybe they were short on income or short on safety or something like that?
Right. Well, we'll ask typically somebody soon to be retired, how much are you willing to lose in a given year, right? And we want an honest answer to that. What are your personal feelings? Where's your uncle point per se, right? You wouldn't want to lose more than this. And I'll tell you, most 90% of them will tell us, well, probably 5-10%. We understand we're in the market, we're going to have some loss, but keep us away from the big ones, Larry, all right?
Okay, so they might say 10% might be as far as we want to go.
Right.
But the problem, and I've heard you say this, Larry, someone comes to you, they have the classic balanced portfolio. Maybe 60% in the market and 40% in bonds. I mean, I know you see that all the time.
Yep.
If there's a bad market environment, how much could that person lose?
Well, we've seen it in 08, Mike. That atypical portfolio lost 30-40%.
So here they are saying, Larry, we only want to lose 10% in a bad year. And here they are invested in the classic balanced portfolio. And why? Because they feel that way they're diversified to protect themselves against a loss like that. And now you're telling me that if they're in a balanced approach, they could end up losing 25, 30, 40%?
That's right.
Holy cow, so that doesn't match up.
Right.
How's the income side looking for some of these portfolios?
You know, that same balanced portfolio, if you look at Morningstar, it used to be that they would say you could take about 4% for income, right? Mm-hmm. That number is now as low as 1.7%.
So what I'm hearing now, let me see if I get this straight. So here you got somebody, let's put some numbers on, give round numbers. Somebody's got $1 million. Sure. Right now, by the way, at home, you might have more, you might have less. Just, I use that number for, sure, just illustrative. Somebody's got $1 million. Balanced portfolios these days are generating what, 17,000 of income? Is that what you're saying?
That's it.
Yet most people, don't they really want maybe, somebody's got $1 million, isn't it pretty typical they want more like 30 or 40,000?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, so here we've got somebody coming to you, they've got a balanced portfolio because they want to be balanced and diversified. They've got enough growth, that part's fine, but the income they need is falling short.
That's right.
The risk side also falling short. So this kind of goes back to what you're saying, right? They're used to these growth and accumulation environment, but now that they're retired, they really need more preservation and income. Is that correct?
Yeah, there has to be a fundamental shift in what their portfolio looks like, especially if it wants to match their risk tolerance and income needs.
Okay, so I like that phrase. Folks, I hope you catch that. I hope you go home and think about that, or as you're watching. Retirement's fundamental shift in life. You need a fundamental shift with your portfolio to match it. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Do you have a plan for how to generate income during retirement? Are you going to run out of money? In today's marketplace, retirees have concerns about the volatility of the market. People have concerns that the traditional balanced portfolio strategy that advisors used in the 80s and 90s isn't good enough in today's new normal economy. There are more secure options available for you today, and that's what we specialize in here at Centennial Wealth Advisory. If you don't yet have a plan or would like a second opinion on your retirement income plan, please call us today for a free, no obligation, complete retirement review.
Here at Centennial Wealth, when we talk about your best is yet to come, what we're really referring to is that retirement is different today.
Retirement represents a fundamental change. Yet most people don't match that with the fundamental change in their investments. Too often we see couples and individuals sticking with the same strategy that got them to retirement and not adjusting to a plan that will get them through retirement.
People who retire today are living 20, 30 years. And when you have that kind of time frame, you have the time to pursue the things that are meaningful to you, that are fulfilling to you.
In looking at your retirement income, you're no longer drawing a paycheck from the company you work for. Instead, you have to be the provider of that income. You don't want to leave this to chance, so we help clients evaluate all of their options to help provide the best solution based on their needs.
Most people in their working years put money into IRAs and 401ks because they wanted to push the tax off to their retirement years when they expected they would be in a lower tax bracket. Far too often, though, they find themselves in the same lifestyle, in the same bracket, and all they did is kick the can down the road.
Well, I'm happy to share with you, we have helped guide hundreds of families past that point into a future that is absolutely bright.
Although it's not fun to discuss, it's vital that we evaluate your life insurance and long-term care planning. The insurance world changes regularly, and you need to know that we're keeping you abreast of today's ever-changing environment.
The three biggest threats to our retirement savings is what we call the hit list. There's healthcare, inflation, and taxes. People can't afford to run out of money, so they have to plan for these things.
If you make smart choices about your money, then you have nothing to worry about.
No retirement plan is complete or properly constructed unless you have an estate plan in place.
We'll regularly bring in an estate planning attorney to speak with our clients to ensure that their estate planning is structured properly.
Today we see people with Social Security, no pension, and everything else in their retirement savings. The challenge is to turn that savings into retirement income that can last their lifetime, not subject to market fluctuations.
We want you to be confident. We know you can be confident. We've done it before. We can do it for you. All right, this week's Chalk Talk, this is one of my favorite discussions, talking about the, what we call the ideal portfolio, using this as a model. And there's something particular I want to talk about. So, whenever you invest money at all, there are three primary characteristics that you're investing towards. You're looking to have, a certain amount of growth. You might want a certain amount of income, or you might not, depending on where you are in life. And you might want a certain amount of safety or not, again, depending on where you are in life. And, if you think about it, if you're young and you're working and you're in your 30s or 40s, you're just setting money aside, you're just trying to grow. Primary job of the portfolio in your younger years is growth potential. That's number one. Well, as you get older, imagine that you're a year, maybe 2 years before you retire. Now you're thinking, gosh, I've worked my whole life, I've saved all this money. I don't want to see the market crash right before I retire and I lose all my, half my money, and then I can't retire. So suddenly, safety or managing risk becomes perhaps the primary objective. Well then, what happens once you retire? Now it's all about income. Because guess what? No income, no retirement. So if you're like a lot of people, you need your money to generate an income once you retire. Now let's think about this together. When you're working every 2 weeks, if you're like most people, every 2 weeks, what does your company do? Well, they give you a paycheck, right? So if you're getting a paycheck when you're working, well, what do you want to have happen after you retire? Again, if you're like most people, you still want a paycheck. All right, let's get that out there. Now, here's a fun question. How long do you want your paycheck to last for? How long? Well, I'm guessing I know the answer. Again, if you're like most people, what do you want? You want a paycheck that lasts a lifetime, don't you? You want that paycheck to last for as long as you live, and if you're married, probably as long as your spouse lives. You want a paycheck that lasts a lifetime. Now, but hold on, we're not done. Right? We're not done, because let's think about it a little further. Let's imagine, just for the sake of discussion, that this portfolio, you've got your money saved for retirement, so maybe you have your 401ks, your IRAs, and you say, okay, I need that money to generate a paycheck that lasts a lifetime. But let's think about this. Let's imagine that you want that paycheck to be from the portfolio, because you have other, like Social Security and other things. Let's imagine you want that paycheck to be $30,000 a year. 30K when you start. Let's imagine that you start at $30,000 a year. Let's go fast forward like 10 years from now. Do you still want $30,000 a year? Or do you maybe want a little bit more? Well, you probably want more. Why do you want more? Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's inflation, right? The cost of living has gone up. So 10 years from now, you need more. 20 years from now, you need even more. 30 years from now. Here, this is something to be aware of. When we talk about your paycheck lasting a lifetime, do you know that if you retire at 65, that your life expectancy, if you're the average person, is probably 20 to 30 years? That's 20 to 30 years of unemployment. That's 20 to 30 years that your paycheck has to last. And what does it have to do? It needs to grow. You need a growing paycheck that lasts a lifetime, don't you? And we're not done yet. I mean, think about this. You were probably working in 2013. Think about this. 5 years ago, let's pretend you were working. If you weren't, let's pretend you were. Did your company come to you and say, "Ha, Bob, Mary, hey, good news. We noticed that the stock market is up 32% this year. We're going to give you a bonus of 32% in your paychecks to reflect that the market's up 32%. Did they do that? Yeah, I didn't think so. No, nobody does that. But you know what else they don't do? In 2008, the market was down 37%. Did they come to you and say, "Bob, Mary, we got to reduce your paycheck by 37% because the market's down"? No, they probably didn't do that either. In other words, if you're like most people, you probably had a steady paycheck when you were working. Well, if it was steady when you were working and growing, don't you kind of want it to be the same way after you retire? Don't you want it to be steady and growing after you retire? Yeah, probably so. So really, what is the primary job of your retirement savings? The primary job is to create a steady and growing paycheck that lasts your lifetime. That's the job. And if there's any money left over to go to your kids, that's fine. But here's the thing. 10-year interest rates right now. 10-year bonds are paying 3%. The market, who knows what it's going to do. It is harder than ever to do this. That's why working with a fiduciary who is an expert in this area often makes a lot of sense.
Retirement represents a fundamental change in your life. Yet most retirees don't match that with a fundamental change in their portfolios.
Centennial Wealth Advisory's core services are built around lifetime retirement income, fully integrated tax reduction strategies, and portfolio stability.
Contact us today for a complimentary, no-obligation initial meeting. We'd be happy to learn about your vision of retirement and to share our insight with you.
Hi, it's Michael Reese here. I have in my hands a copy of our #1 best-selling book on Amazon in its category, Retiring Well, How to Enjoy Retirement in Any Economy. In this book, we cover the 4 big areas of retirement planning: income planning, investment planning, tax planning, and estate planning or legacy planning. It has everything you need to know about your retirement plan, and I want to get you a free copy. So how do you get a free copy? It's really easy. Just call the number on the screen. Come visit with us. Come on in for a free, no-obligation financial planning review. And when you come in to get your planning reviewed, we'll give you a copy, your very own copy of this best-selling book, absolutely for free. Again, just call the number on the screen. I want you to get your free copy. I know that you're going to love it.
Thanks for coming back this week on Retiring Well and joining us here. In this final segment here that John and I are going to talk about this week, we're going to be diving into, Larry and Mike have talked a lot about kind of the building this portfolio and the ideal portfolio. And we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of this old saying of don't have your eggs all in one basket, and getting into like the different strategies and why that's important.
Right, like when I turn on the TV now, you see a lot of commercials for gold. Oh, buy gold. This is the end-all solution. And ultimately, we may say, okay, we could see gold making sense for a portion, but it definitely shouldn't be your end-all solution to everything. And so it comes back to that key word that we always talk about is diversification. And that doesn't just strictly apply to your investment. It really applies to different strategies you may have.
Right. There's so many different investments and then different strategies out there. And it seems in this industry today, you might have a specialist or have one person that really likes the gold or an insurance, or they're really trying to sell some large cap mutual fund.
Right.
That usually not one product strategy is the solution for all your needs, right?
Most definitely. I mean, a lot of times you find the greatest value in diversification of all those strategies. So you might have, banks involved in your plan. You might have insurance companies. You're going to have maybe brokerage companies. You might have different commodities where you hold them directly. You might have real estate where you own rentals or whatever it may be. And so a lot of times the most successful people I see where they're diversifying all of those different strategies to blend them together to create a cohesive retirement plan.
Right. I think back to, a lot of retirees, they kind of want consistency and comfort in knowing that, they're not just tracking the market or stuff like that. So the more alternatives, stuff like that you can plug into place. You mentioned a lot of them just right there with the different pieces, right, where maybe you can kind of start to stray away from just having that one thing that you're either going to have great success with it because it's doing well, or you're going to have failure because you had the wrong timing.
Right, and it comes back to, in my mind, Art, as far as some of the strategies that we've used where we're maybe structuring things in breaking out into different buckets of money, and you've got maybe some money at the bank where you're using that for some income temporarily. You may have different insurance products out there that may provide an income stream. You might have these brokerage accounts that provide some growth and everything, and you may have some other outside investments, real estate, whatever it may be, that you bring all those together to generate that consistent income, so you're not necessarily relying solely on the stock market. That's what I think one of the biggest things that I've found over the years is talking with people is they've gone to advisors, and the advisor, that's all that they can offer, and so that's all that they're invested in is just strictly stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and hoping ultimately that plan works.
Right. And I think, you had said interesting there, and I think there's a big misconception out there when somebody has a basket of mutual funds, they think they're well diversified and they're in all these areas because that's what mutual funds are. They're supposed to help me diversify. Well, we typically in our office here will run a report, an analysis, and break apart those. And what is that mutual fund really, really holding, right? And John, we see it time in and time out. What do we typically learn when we get this back? And that's the average person, let's say it's $500,000, they have, they probably have 100 different mutual funds, and what do they really have at the end of the day?
Right, they may have 10,000 different holdings within those funds, but then what you find a lot of times is the diversification really isn't there. It's this stock intersection report that reports, okay, here's your top holdings, and you see those same mutual funds have the same holdings, your Apple and Facebook and Google. I mean, a lot of those different stocks are in there where you see, okay, wait, I thought I was diversified, but really these different funds are really overlapping or intersecting each other and holding a lot of the same positions.
Right, a lot of duplication going on, right? So at the end of the day, what they once thought they were well diversified, they're back to just tracking kind of an index or the market, and they have all these mutual funds, they're paying all the costs for it, but they're really not getting that true diversification. Right. Folks, if you want to learn about different strategies to help build that portfolio for you, to help meet your needs and goals that you want to have in your retirement, come in, get a second opinion. Let's sit down together and walk through what that could look like and how that may benefit you. Give us a call. We look forward to seeing you. And as always, thank you for joining us this week on Retiring Well.